Hi, my name is Alexa Shapiro, and I was in the Monarch cohort for the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy's Forest Bathing Guide course. And I am so grateful to Project Get Outdoors and all of the incredible sponsors and community partners who supported this program. And I look forward to sharing more about my experience with each of you today. So, a little bit about me. I've been working in the outdoor industry since 2015. I started my work in the Parks and Recreation Department, where I managed volunteers on various park projects. From there, I started to work in more program coordination, mostly as a camp director for a local YMCA. And then more recently, I've worked in nonprofit management for outdoor based companies, mostly in their startup phase in the first 1 to 3 years. I've really enjoyed this work as it's given me more of the behind the scenes look at the outdoor industry beyond the planning and facilitating of events and volunteer projects. I currently work for the Minnesota Driftless Hiking Trail as their trail director. Through this work, I do a lot of community engagement to increase awareness of the trail, oversee the organization's finances, board of directors, and operations, and I work on the larger project of laying the groundwork to build the actual trail. All of my outdoor work focuses on supporting historically underrepresented communities in the outdoors. This is a very wide group. So I know this is very unspecific, but this is a group of people that are really important to me, specifically because I identify as being a part of two communities who have been historically excluded from nature. There's a really long history of various communities from LGBTQIA plus to women, differently abled bodies, veterans, people of color, and so many other communities who've had additional barriers to accessing nature. And it's always been my mission to incorporate diversity and equity into my work to begin undoing some of the harm that we've inflicted on these communities in the past and in the present. I'm also an avid backpacker with about 3,000 miles underneath my feet, an avid paddler, and an all around general outdoor enthusiast. I just love to be in nature. When I first started the cohort, I expected that this course would help deepen my relationship with nature and help me discover new ways to support others in getting outside. I've traditionally guided more higher risk forms of recreation like rock climbing, paddling, backpacking. And I loved the idea of introducing folks to a practice that felt more accessible and that can really impact us on an interpersonal level. And I was also curious to learn a little bit more about other avenues for working in the outdoors beyond programs, including Park RX efforts to incorporate practices like forest bathing into our medical system as a prescription for things like anxiety and depression. The training was self paced, which I really enjoyed. The online coursework included various segments of learning that opened every other week. You had 2 weeks to complete a segment, including any assignments or discussion board prompts. And the way the training is set up allows us to be flexible with how quickly you move through those learning segments. So even though a new one opens every 2 weeks, we were able to move a little slower through each if life was keeping us busy. And the flexibility was key in creating a stress-free experience for myself during the training. The virtual community was extremely supportive during the program. Our cohort was all from Minnesota, which also added to the sense of support and community that we held during our program. We met weekly on a Zoom call with our instructors and had a few weekend walks as well. And we also had a digital group chat that helped us stay connected and ask questions of one another. This chat is still active and it's continued to highlight for me the support that our cohort grew for one another during our time together. The whole process ends with an in person immersion. The experience was incredible. We learned a lot more about forest bathing during the immersion and got to practice guiding and being led during this time too. It was just a really meaningful experience for me and one that I've continued to hold really close to my heart ever since. All in all, I found the training experience to be incredibly community oriented. I think the focus on Minnesota really aided to this. The course was also really had a really incredible interpersonal impact. There were a number of inner learnings that I didn't really expect to encounter. And I found this course to be just as valuable for myself as an individual as it was for me as a professional. The workload felt very manageable for me. However, I will say that I work part time during the cohort program and had a lot of flexibility to incorporate this work into my day to day life. That made it easier for me personally to stay on top of the coursework and to be present during our calls. One thing I wish I did differently was just staying a little bit more committed to the actual practice. I was nervous to learn forest bathing virtually because it's such an in-person practice. And I was worried that in learning virtually that we might miss out on some of that connection that actually happens when we're in nature. At times, the virtual learning did make it harder for me to dive into the practice. And I wish I just had a little bit more of a routine with my own personal sit spot practice or forest bathing practice to really help ingrain what I was learning. I've guided a handful of walks already. Most of my walks have just been open to my existing community in Winona, Minnesota, where I live, which also happens to just be heavily populated by folks in the LGBTQIA plus community. These walks have always been free, and I offer them about once a month. These have been really great opportunities for me to grow more comfortable guiding because of the existing relationship that I have with all my participants. I've also guided groups that I don't know, though. I guided a walk this summer as a part of a nonprofit newsroom's biophilia series, and the event was open to the public with more than half of the group being new to forest bathing. One thing that I have learned from my walks is that I might benefit from asking for a small registration fee. At all of my walks, we've had a high registration and medium to low turnout. I've noticed in my years of coordinating programs that people are always more inclined to show up for an event or a program if there is a fee to register. I really prefer to keep programs free of charge because I really believe that we should not have to pay exorbitant fees to be outside and that we need to continue to reduce any barriers to accessibility for programming like this. However, I've had to turn away others due to registration caps. And so I'm considering a fee to ensure that folks who are committed to coming actually have the opportunity to attend as well. I wanted to share some quotes from two of my participants from some of these walks that happened this summer. The first quote is when asked kind of what the expectations that they hoped to receive from the program, they responded, I wanted to deepen my mindfulness practice and my awareness of the life that surrounds me. My goals were definitely met and exceeded. And another participant was asked about any moments that stood out to them during their practice. And they said, feeling the sun on my face as I lovingly embraced a tree and felt comforted in a similar way to being held by another human. For professionals who are considering having employees undergo this training, I wanted to just share a few pieces of feedback. So, forest bathing is such an accessible practice, and I guarantee that even if you work with a sensitive population, there is a way to bring this practice to your audience. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind. I also encourage you to look at forest bathing as an investment in mental health. If you're able to support an employee to go through this training, they have the ability then to bring this practice to your staff and help provide some important workplace wellness opportunities. My personal favorite thing about the ANFT's approach to forest bathing is that it's meant to repair our relationship to nature. I think sometimes when we approach mindfulness practices like forest bathing, we might turn people away on accident if we discuss the mental health benefits or address this practice as meditative, since meditation can kind of be intimidating for some people. The repairing of our relationship has always felt really approachable to me. I like that explanation of forest bathing, and I enjoy that that can look so different to each of us. It's a very personal thing. And it's also more grounded in the industrialization of our nation and allowing us to return to our roots as a part of nature ourselves. So I think that kind of takes out some of the intimidation that we might feel if we just focus on this practice as being a mindfulness practice. And lastly, if you're considering supporting a staff member through this program, consider other alternative ways that a certification can support your organization. So there are forest bathing trails, for example, which are certified trails where folks have greater access to resources that may benefit forest bathing practices. If you run a facility or manage an outdoor space, this may be another way to incorporate forest bathing into your organization beyond just providing the program itself. As far as students, if you're considering taking the training yourself, I really encourage you to think about your capacity for the training. A lot of members of my cohort were balancing working full-time jobs, being parents, doing all the extracurriculars, and just dealing with life itself. And that's a lot to have, on top of also doing this professional development opportunity. And so, as you're considering this, really keep in mind: do you have the capacity on a professional level to keep up with the coursework that's required for all of the weekly meetings, all of the guided walks? And then more interpersonally, do you have the capacity to enter into a practice that is kind of vulnerable and to really meet yourself where the practice is? That includes like having the time to develop your own personal sit spot practice or your own personal forest bathing practice and really ensure that you are practicing the forest bathing and really incorporating it into your life just as much as you're learning about it. I also encourage you to explore the possible connections to your industry. So, as I said earlier, forest bathing trails, Park RX, there's countless ways that you can really incorporate forest bathing into the work that you do. And our cohort was really interesting because we had a lot of healthcare professionals, we had a lot of educators, and we had a lot of people who worked in the outdoors. So we're all approaching this work from different perspectives and different industries, and we're all learning how we can come back into our work and bring this forward too. So really get creative and brainstorming how you want to incorporate forest bathing into the work that you're already doing, and work with your employers to see if that's an opportunity for you as well. So we were asked this question. I just wanted to provide some of my thoughts about this. If you compared your life and your practice now to that of a year ago, how has it changed due to this experience? And the changes that I have, I could honestly talk for a very, very long time about all the ways in which I've changed as a result of this program. But some of the simple things that I've noticed is that my senses are more heightened when I'm outside. I'm way more likely now than I was a year ago to notice the sounds that are around me, notice the smells, notice the tastes. And that's not something that I was really keyed into beforehand, nor was it something that I even realized I wasn't keyed into beforehand. I walk the same loop every day with my dogs. And now I see things that have been there every single year that I walked that loop for the last 5 years that I just didn't notice as much before because forest bathing really invited me into that awareness. I also noticed that I walk slower. Um, like I said earlier, I'm a backpacker, and I would definitely say that I'm more of a speed backpacker. I love to move quickly through the woods and to feel really strong. But I found that forest bathing has just naturally helped me slow down a lot more. And it's not something I'm technically even aware of. I'm just noticing eventually that I'm moving a lot slower through trails that I used to just really breeze through and just move quickly through. And that's felt really important too, because it's helped me slow down in life in general and just be a little less go, go, go. And then last but not least, and this one feels like an obvious one to me, but my mental health is way better. Um, I definitely, as a lot of people do, struggle with my mental health and anxiety and depression. And I found that this practice really opened the door for me to have resources at my fingertips that I can pull on to really take care of myself. And in moments where my mental health is low, I've really found that forest bathing has just kind of naturally helped push me out of that and to find stronger ground to stand on. So I'm really grateful for this practice for that reason. And I'm also really grateful for this practice because I get to help other people experience it too and to see those same benefits that I've found. These are a couple photos from walks that I've guided. Actually, all of the photos except for the top left come from the biophilia guided walk that I did. That was in Riverside Park in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and we had about 12 participants. And then at the top left corner, you'll see a human there with a red bandana, another person handing them something. This was a treasure hunting invitation that I did. I asked people to find a little treasure for a partner and then to hand it to them with their eyes closed and give that person the chance to experience that with all of their senses except for sight, and then to open their eyes and look at their treasure before returning it back to the earth. And I'm just including my contact information here. Again, my name is Alexis Shapiro, and there is my email address. I'm not currently guiding under a business. However, I do contracted guides. Then I also work occasionally with community partners to provide walks for various community groups. My next one being up in Duluth at Hartley Nature Center. If you're ever interested in getting connected to see about scheduling a walk for yourself or your group, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much for your time.